again, you've had over 100 episodes of this podcast where you've
200.
interviewed 200,
Yeah.
where you've interviewed, CEOs, CSOs, CTOs. Are there any stories over those episodes that particularly stick with you now? Um,
I mean, we've had such incredible people on the podcast. Like we've been so lucky. We've had people like Jane Osborne, who has an OBE for services to the industry. People like Darren Disley, Paul Peter Tack. There's some people who've been on recently that the episodes haven't come out yet at the time of recording. That they're just incredible people, and people who've just started companies who are doing brilliant things, and people with tons of experience at big companies. Karen Condé Napa, who's running research at Novo Nordisk, which is the biggest company in Europe. It's been amazing to see the willingness that people have to give back some of their time. I guess some of the things that stick in mind are when I interviewed Paul Peter Tack. This is a long time ago now. One of the roles he'd had in his career was that he was the chief immunology officer at GSK, so he ran all of their immunology programs.
okay.
And he talked about in his research teams, they used to celebrate failure when they killed a program. So when they killed a program and they decided not to progress it, they'd have a party. And it wasn't as big a party as the ones when they were moving forward and the ones when they were successful. But the whole
Yeah.
point was that if you killed a program at preclinical or after phase one or whatever, actually in the GSK environment, what you were doing was saving 20, 40, 50, $100 million. That was worth celebrating. And it was a difficult decision for the scientists. But I think, everybody talks about embracing failure, but it's much harder to do than it is to talk about because we want things to be successful, especially things that we've put a lot of work into. So it was really interesting to see an actual mechanism for celebrating failure. Um, I think the other story that always stuck with me was I mentioned Darren Disley before. Um, he when he was younger, he'd been a semi-professional football player. He'd been on the academy at West Ham
Okay.
and was sort of making his way up the ranks there. And he realised when he was about, I think, 16 or 17, that he was never going to be a Premier League football player. He wasn't good enough. Like, he
Yeah.
could have maybe been a professional football player, but it wouldn't have been at the top level. And even that was probably a bit of a question mark. So he just decided he was going to get a PhD and become an entrepreneur instead. And then went and did that. And then his sort of big claim to fame was founding Horizon Discovery and Floating Nat, and then has been involved in
Yeah.
lots of other things since then. So just seeing that people can change paths like that. Okay, yes, he was still young, but I think you kind of sometimes feel that your path is quite fixed. But seeing the twists and turns that people have taken through their careers has been really inspirational. And there's been a ton of others, but the kind of it's always come back to the fact that the people you work with and the things that you're doing for others are the things that you're going to remember at the end of your career. And it's not what title you had or the salary that you earned or what percentage pension you had or anything like that. It's the people and the impact that are the really important things that people look back on as their careers progress. And I think as well, there's been a ton of people who've talked about being open to opportunity.
Yeah.
And I've seen over the years a lot of people whose careers have stalled because they were too scared to take a risk. And look, you've got to be responsible, and people have other things going on outside of their jobs and
Cool.
things like that. But I think there's a lot of careers out there that have stalled because of fear,
Okay.
and it's a really poor reason to hold yourself back.